Hi, welcome back. Let's continue with the lecture. Um, so, as I said before, as the workers become more organized, this 8-hour working day has become one of the central campaigns of the organized workforce. Famously, for example, in United States, that one of the slogans was, we want bread, but also roses and time to smell those roses." For example. And um, well, one of the very early opponents for that was actually an idealist who was also an employer at the time, Robert Owen. Um, he built an industrial town to show that a factory can also work under some um, under more favorable conditions, uh, especially forcing long hours to work and also low living standards. It was a neo-anarch, and uh, he set the working time at the factory to 10 hours. The factory worked, but he also has a lot of income. So basically, the fact that one factory worked, it could still be asked the question whether all factories could work if one factory is working, especially built by an already wealthy man. Uh, he later tried to build a utopian society where everyone works together and distribute everything that's produced equally. That second um, experiment has failed, and Robert Owen has lost all this money. But still, he came to England back. The second experiment was in the United States. He came back to England and started advocating for the workers' right. And when he came back, he has argued that the most natural working time for human beings is 8 hours, which leaves 16 hours for sleeping and recreation. Um, and then, uh, well, one of the first laws which set 8-hour working day for children at least was in England in 1833. And in some, well, for example, Boston ship carpenters, special groups sometimes, that's one example of that, were able to set the working hour for 8 hours per day. Well, the universal working time fell to, I don't know all the examples, but one of the first major examples happened in the Soviet Union after 1917. The working day has been reduced to 8 hours. Of course, there could be some exceptions, but at least this was the rule. And in the United States, this reduction has happened to the 1938. Basically, I mean, they didn't reduce the working day to 8 hours. Rather, they have reduced the working week to 40 hours. So 40 hours working week is a standard. And usually, we look if someone is working full time or part time, we look whether someone is working 40 hours per week or less. Less means part time. More means overtime. The person is working overtime, basically. Overtime is usually allowed, but you need to pay more than regular hourly wage to the workers if that worker is working overtime. Um, so, uh, arguably, union movement intellectuals, all this advocates of the 8 hour per day, has been effective in reducing working time to 8 hours. Although some mainstream economists think that as productivity increased, actually that was the main the employers would already probably will reduce the working time to 8 hours anyway. So according to this view, um, previously it was impossible to reduce working day to 8 hours because uh, if workers keep working at 8 hours, there won't be enough profit left for the companies. So basically, no one can offer 8-hour day to the workers and stay in business. So, because the competition already reduces, the benefits taken from the company to the lowest possible limits. As productivity increases, that allow companies to stay profitable with 8-hour working day. So that's, according to some mainstream economists, why the working day has reduced to 8 labor hours, not because of the movement. Although we should say, before the laws passed, significant number of workplaces were employing workers for longer than 8 hours. So basically, maybe law had an effect. If you are interested, that could be an interesting thing to look at. How the laws affect the working time, basically. And currently some mainstream economists and active also certain people in the political sphere, they also argue that those standard working time is hurting the market flexibility and profitability of the company, so they should be lifted. That's one of the ideas. While there's a silent but still a significant movement which actually argues that working week can be reduced further to the 20 hours. That's an interesting thing, because that means for earning wages we will only work for 20 hours per week. That is 2.5 day or 4 hours per 2.5 day with 8 hours, basically 2 days for working 8 hours and 1 day 4 hours, or 4 hours for 5 days, which leaves us a lot of free time. And the question is, what will we do in that free time if that's the new working time for us, which is a big question, which could be discussed on a different platform. But for me, just mention it. Let me mention it and pass it. So, and again, another argument is the market should be more open for the flexibility for the workers. So workers should have more options where to work, how to work, and that is also beneficial for the companies and likely to increase labor productivity. This is another argument, but this argument is sometimes also stated for the states, basically, but also, for example, states are asked to pass laws which make the companies to pass laws to allow mothers to take sometimes 6 months, sometimes a year of break to look after their children. And in some countries, even the states are asked to pass laws for the fathers also, not only for the mothers. However, in some these suggestions are also directed to the companies. The companies are told that providing this flexibility, they are likely to increase the productivity of their workers. Do the companies lose? If they employ high wage workers, sometimes some companies might be following these rules. Also, although the companies like Google, they pretty much want you work all the time, basically. Even continue thinking about the work after you go to home. For low income groups, basically, they want to employ you, give job to you when there is a need for work, and they want to not pay you, not give a job and not pay you when there is no need for work, especially in the service industry. In other sectors, as far as I know, still the working times are set to their maximum limits. In production, industrial sector, especially, and in farming, especially at the times. In farming, again, at the times when there's a need for work. So this could be actually interesting research. How work time is distributed between, organized in different sectors, and how much flexibility is provided by the companies, and is it a marginal thing with the number of companies, or it's increasing number of companies following this trend. But anyway, this is the issue. So now let's come to the math. As I told you before, in mainstream economics, the decision, the working time is pretty much set by the workers themselves. So workers decide, taking the outside factors like wage and non-labor market income into account, how many hours they are willing to work. And while they're doing that, they do a special process which in mathematics modeled as optimization problem. So they want to get maximum of something, which is in this case utility, by dividing a source between two different options. I mean, in this case, they divide their time between leisure and working time to get maximum amount of utility. I want to present you the optimization problem under a different setting, which might be more familiar for, which at least the terminology might be more familiar for you. So we have a student who wants to maximize his or her grade by dividing his or her time between sleeping time and study time. We assumed already our student has decided how many hours he or she will spend for other activities. In this case, 9.5 hours spent for other activities. And the remaining time will be divided between the sleeping and the study. So there are different ways to solve this type of problem. So what will be the optimum optimum division for our student in this case? What we will focus on is the graphical solution. So for this graphical solution, first we construct a budget line. Budget line gives us all possible combinations of working, sleeping time and study time. So if you study 15.5 hours, 15.5 hours, in that case you don't have any time for study, since other activities take a certain amount of the rest of the time. If you work for example 10 hours, then you are left with 5.5 hours for sleep. If you study sleep 5 hours, in that case you are left with 10.5 hours to study. So these are the all potential combinations. Basically, I mean, you cannot go above it, assuming you have already decided how many hours you spend for other activities. Then you have indifference curves. So indifference curves give you all potential combinations of sleeping and study time to get a certain grade. So if you already sleeping a lot and sleeping little, if you sleep very little but working a lot, in that case you need sleep. Sleep is more necessary. I mean, you feel it's need more than the study, because your brain is not concentrating, and that concentration is more important than the knowledge and training. In that case, well, if you want to decrease sleeping time a little, you should compensate it with a lot more working time, which might not be necessary. Remember, this is daily working time. So if you decrease your daily sleeping time by 1 hour, you need to increase your daily working time by 25 hours, which is impossible, of course, but we are in the realm of math now. But if you are already sleeping a lot but studying little, in that case, working time becomes more valuable. In that case, if you want to decrease your sleeping time by 1 unit, very little working time is necessary for compensation. Since working time is much more valuable than the sleeping time. So let's stop here. Continue in the next part.